Kingstream Entertainment. Ruslan.
I've never been one to shy away from controversy or talk about things that are on my mind and be as unapologetic with you guys as possible. And in the climate that we're in, with all this political division, you're going to see a lot of people pandering to you or just trying to appease you or persuade you to vote a specific way. Now, this video came out. I wanted to respond to it. Some of you guys are going to think I'm crazy. You're going to disagree with me, and that's okay. That's okay. And I'm not doing this because I'm voting Democrat or I'm voting for Joe Biden, by the way. I'm doing this so that I could save you the heartache of not dismissing and discarding people you disagree with politically and thinking that they're all satanic and crazy and just are anti-God, okay? So this is me really trying to help you critically think through some different perspectives, right or wrong, through some different perspectives on these issues. This is a video from one of my, I actually really like this YouTube channel. It's called Cross Examine. And he did this video called The Democrats and Republicans Platforms in 3 minutes. And I'm just going to break these down and just give you the counter argument that he's not giving you. And most people, when they make these videos, they're not going to give you both sides of the argument. I'm going to give you both sides of the argument because I'm politically agnostic and I don't got a dog in a fight. And I think both of these parties are trash. Let's check it out.
Republicans are good because they're not. I'm not here to say all Democrats are bad because they're not.
Thank you for telling us that.
So let's sum all this up by looking at the two major party platforms on some major issues. Democrat, Republican. By the way, this is not just about Trump and Biden. Okay, it is, but it's also about the 435 representatives that are elected every 2 years in the United States of America. There's always about 33 or 34 senators up. There's several governors and many local elections every November. And 90% of the people who are part of these parties vote with their party. 90% of the time, let me put it that way. 90% of the time, Democrats vote with the Democratic platform, Republicans vote with the Republican platform. Okay? Here's the data. Abortion, Democrats want to pay for it, Republicans want to ban it or at least restrict it. Religious freedom, restrict it. What do I mean?
Okay, so first part, this is the first part. You guys are going to hear this over and over, and we're just going to unpack this together. This idea of the A word. I don't want to go super deep because YouTube will demonetize this video, and I feel like you guys need to hear this. Okay, here's some history about Roe v. Wade. Okay, here's some history about Roe v. Wade. The folks that initially... Waywick is his name. The dude that initially started the religious right movement, the religious right. A lot of our evangelical thinking is influenced by these folks greatly. Jerry Falwell, all these folks, their initial cause, the root cause that they were actually fighting for initially was segregation in schools. One, that's important to note. Okay, so you can look them up. Religious right, history of the religious right is countless articles. The country had moved on and they needed another issue to latch onto. They were trying to keep Christian schools segregated. It's actually why Martin Luther King Jr. didn't go to Dallas Theological Seminary. It was segregated. He couldn't even get in. It's crazy. So one, that was the initial founding issue of the religious right. Roe v. Wade passed in 1973, I believe. Guess who was on the Supreme Court? Predominantly Republican judges. Republican judges passed Roe v. Wade. So this whole notion that Trump is going to get us Republican judges and they're not going to let Roe v. Wade stand and they're going to ban it. Well, it was Republican judges, predominantly Republican Supreme Court judges that passed Roe v. Wade. One, that's important. The religious right didn't make it an issue and there was not a message preached against it until 1979. Okay, 73, Jerry Falwell preaches his first message against abortion in 79. That's a big gap. What happened in 79? You guessed it. Ronald Reagan was running for president. That is by the way, who was a pro-choice candidate initially. Sound familiar? Movie star, entertainer, initially pro-choice candidate, then became a pro-life candidate. Sound familiar? Yeah. So he's running. Religious right latches on to this issue because this is the issue that they feel like could divide and create the moral majority. Religious right. Google all this stuff for yourself just so you don't think I'm capping. Okay. So off top, abortion was passed by Republican Supreme Court. That's a fact. That's an undeniable fact. It was a majority Republican Supreme Court. Second of all, this whole notion of, oh, Trump will get more Republican Supreme Court justice. They had another predominantly Republican Supreme Court in the 90s. Okay? they still didn't get rid of abortion. It still didn't change. Okay, so one, understand that it was a Republican court that passed the Supreme Court. It was a Republican. The Republicans had another predominantly Republican Supreme Court in the I believe the early 90s under the first Bush. Okay, and now he has a Supreme Court. And this time around, he literally said in the first debate, I did a whole video about it, saying that Roe v. Wade's not on the docket. We're not even addressing it. The judge he just passed, Judge Amy Coney, I think that's how you say her name, said the same thing. Hey, I don't have a desire to change that. Maybe restrict it, but not change that. So this notion, off top, Republicans want to ban it. Complete lie. It's just not true. Some Republicans, some Christian Republicans may want to ban it, but it's just not true. It just isn't. Okay. It's just not, because if they wanted to ban it, it could have been gone. Back in 92, they could have never passed it initially. The Supreme Court could have never passed it initially. Okay. Now, so that's important to know. Now, I'm going to link an article below of Donald Miller, one of my favorite authors. He wrote a book called Blue Like Jazz. He was on Valuetainment recently. He runs a thing called Storybrand. And there's an article, Unapologetic Christian, Born Again Christian, a whole bit. And there's an article from 2008 about why he was voting for Barack Obama. By the way, I voted for Obama in 2008 and 2012 as well for the same reason. And he goes through the list in that, hey, even though Barack Obama was pro-choice, he actually had a plan to reduce the number of unwanted pregnancies. And how did he do it? Because he changed economic policy to create less poverty, because abortion is directly connected to poverty. He reduced the, and by the way, and this is a fact, you could look this up. Abortions hit a historic low under Obama, under any president up to that point, since Roe v. Wade. They hit a historic low under Obama, because Obama, even though he was a pro-choice president, and again, I'm not saying this is right or wrong or if you should or shouldn't be. I'm saying these are the facts. He reduced the number of abortions to historic lows. That is a fact. Look it up for yourself. I'll link the Donald Miller article. It's a weird little time capsule to go back and think of the climate then and think about it. And maybe you just don't know this stuff. So when somebody says this to you, Republicans want to ban it. No, they don't. No, they don't. Now, do Democrats want to pay for it? Yeah. Some of them, a lot of them, and this is why I don't rock with the Democratic Party, because I don't want taxpayer money going towards terminating pregnancies. I don't want that. This is why I don't rock with them either. But what's happening is this right here is, they're pandering to you. Christian, they're pandering to you. You think that they really give a damn. They don't, because if they gave a damn, this would have been done, because they've been had control of all this stuff. Now, there are Christian Republicans, like amazing, serious Christian Republicans, like folks like George Bush, who's I believe George Bush is a born-again Christian. I don't agree with a lot of his overseas policies. I don't agree with the war in Iraq. I don't agree with but George Bush did pass a partial abortion ban in 2003. He did do something to reduce the number of abortions. So that's just off top, okay? Like you guys got to know this. Like, you guys got to know this. We have to stop allowing ourselves to be finessed over and over to think that the Republican Party cares about this. They don't. It's just pandering to you. In the same way, it's so obvious that the Democrats put Kamala Harris there and thought that she would just magically win over all the black women voters as a symbolic gesture. They put Mike Pence with Trump to win over all the evangelical voters. And I'll show you guys a clip later where, black women are like, nah, we're just not blindly voting for anybody. Let's talk about the policies, right? And I'll show that later on in the stream or in the next video. But gosh, goodness gracious, Republicans have been doing this to evangelical Christians. And the key issue is you create an environment and an economy where there's less poverty, there's less people pulled out of poverty. You allow more education, you allow more contraceptives, you allow more preventative things to reduce the number of abortions. It would be like if we have an obesity problem, so we're gonna ban food instead of saying, hey, let's create preventative measures to help people not become obese, right? I know it's a flawed metaphor, but hopefully you can follow along with me. Hey, these people are overeating. They're not making good decisions. This is impacting their health. We're gonna be at, I think 50% of the population is gonna be morbidly obese by the year 2030. Hey, instead of banning food, let's do things to prevent food overconsumption, to educate, to create some type of legislation so that they can't just give you the biggest possible soda, right? Whatever, right? So different approaches, but to say that all Republicans care about abortion and all Democrats don't care about abortion is just nonsense. It's just nonsense. It's just not true. And a lot of you guys are being pandered to and you don't even know it. Now let's keep watching the rest of this video. Okay, so religious freedom. He said Democrats want to restrict it and Republicans want to.
What do you mean by that? Well, notice some of these blue state governors are allowing casinos to open, but not churches. They don't think church is really a right or religion is really a right. And when it comes to the LGBTQ issue, if there's ever a conflict between religious rights and LGBTQ, guess who wins? LGBTQ. It is in their platform. You can read it. They talk about exemptions for religious organizations. Say no. You can't discriminate. Yet they're discriminating against religious people. Of course, Republicans believe it's unrestricted. Judges, these are law.
So he talks about the idea of restricting certain religious practices, that kind of stuff. And that is a thing, right? That is a thing where Democrats want to, in the era, I think the overcorrection of attempting to protect certain liberties, they will then be more aggressive in restricting. The far left will say, hey, we need to remove churches' 501c3 non-tax exempt status, right? There are some people on the far left that do that. But again, we're talking about, do the majority of Republicans want to restrict religious freedom? I don't think so. We're talking about majority. We're talking about the majority. Okay, I don't think so. I got a lot of Democratic friends. I don't think they're trying to restrict religious freedom. I think they don't want your religious freedom used as a tool to spur hate against certain groups and to be the folks in front of certain things with signs and all that kind of stuff, right? That's, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? So, are there some? Yes, for sure. Are they all? I don't think so. Again, it depends on the individual. Broad generalities are the epitome of ignorance. Broad generalizations are the epitome of ignorance. Don't use the most extreme voices from any side to dismiss and lump everybody in. Now let's keep going on this idea. He talks about judges who are lawmaking versus law upholding.
Whereas the Republicans are trying to put law-applying judges on there. What does that mean? Instead of making law, like they just apply the law that the people have passed. That's why there's a war going on whenever there's a new Supreme Court justice like we have right now, because the left knows that the best way to get their agenda through is by judges who just declare it by fiat, where 5 unelected justices can tell the rest of the country what to do, even if the country decided opposite that. Now, it's true that sometimes Republican judges turn out to be these kind of judges, but I've never seen a case where one of these judges turns out to be this kind of judge.
Now, did you guys catch that? He said it's true that sometimes a lot of times Republican judges end up becoming more liberal, more democratic judges. They're lawmaking versus law applying. He's right. And this is why the whole Supreme Court stuff is kind of nonsense, because the very same judges that Trump passed refused his ability to overturn DACA and refused his ability to overturn Obamacare, meaning that Republican conservative judges, whether in the case of Roe v. Wade, whether in the case of Obamacare, whether in the case of DACA, will over the long term lean further and further left. It just is what it is. His point about lawmaking and law applying is the law absolute and is a need to be fact, right? And we got to take the Constitution literally, or does the law need to adapt to the economy, the social climate, so on and so forth? That's a philosophical debate. One side is saying, hey, we need to adjust laws as time evolves and we can't take the Constitution literally all the time. And other people are saying, no, right? So that's a philosophical thing. I'm not saying either one is right or wrong. Republicans are conservatives. Technically, they want to conserve things and keep things the way they are. Democrats say, hey, we need to make things more equitable. judges by and large, right? So it depends on how you look at it. Now let's keep going through these points.
How about race-neutral policies? I know this is going to sound crazy, but it's in the Democrat platform. You can read it. They do not believe in race-neutral policies. In other words, they want to use race to advantage people or use policy to advantage certain races over others. Whereas, of course, the Republicans are against that. School choice, the one...
Now, no. Like, you guys caught how he just kind of glanced over that. Now, what is he talking about? He's talking about policies like affirmative action, right? I'm going to come back to this. He says, race neutral policy. That sounds really sexy, right? Race neutral policies. Democrats are against race neutral policies and Republicans are for it. This makes it sound like the Republicans are the good guys. Now, what is this? What is that point, right? Now, whether or not you agree with affirmative action, I don't care. I'm not going to get into that. Remember, Martin Luther King Jr. was rejected from going to Dallas Theological Seminary because he was black. That is a fact, okay? If you guys don't know, Dallas Theological Seminary is, distinguished, renowned theological seminary. So, what is this trying to do? What is this trying to accomplish? This is trying to maybe at fault sometimes overcorrect the race neutral policies by giving more black people the opportunity. And I had this conversation with some of my black brothers yesterday. It's like this. It's, hey, there's no Armenians in the NBA, right? There's no Armenians in the NBA. I'm Armenian. Should the NBA lower the bar so that Ruslan the Armenian go into the NBA to create a more equitable NBA, right? Or does Ruslan just need to get better and step it up? Right? That is the question. Right now, I would say that's silly. I'm not NBA material. I'll probably never ever come close to being NBA material. You shouldn't lower the bar to get me into the NBA to make NBA more equitable. Right? That's silly. And what the pushback would be like, well, hey, we know that there are Armenians somewhere that can play in the NBA. Maybe we should go out and find those Armenians to create a more diverse NBA, right? You guys see what I'm talking about? So it's just a way of viewing these race neutral issues. Now, when you say race neutral, what that's really getting at is that's getting to a flat out like straight meritocracy. And we know that America's not a meritocracy. We know that opportunity a lot of times is afforded to us based on where we're born, what school do we go to, what network of friends and family do we have, what kind of money do we have, so on and so forth. So to say race neutral would imply that we have a clear meritocracy, and we don't. We have a lot of nepotism in America. And so the way he phrased this is that one is good and one is bad, and it's not. Sometimes there are times where, hey, creating quotas may not be the most beneficial, but other times we do need to create diversity, and we do need to have different perspectives, and we do need to have different identities in an environment, not for the sake of identity politics, but to just say, hey, diversity is good. Diversity is good. Pure equal output is not good. Right? Pure equal output is not good. So what am I for? I'm for equal opportunity. If people are coming from the hood, they don't have the same access to good education. They don't have the same access to a good college. They don't have the same access to grants to start businesses. We need to help and lift those people up. We do, right? Because if it was true capitalism, well, then sucks for you. You just get to be poor generationally. No, we need to help those people up. But what I don't want is that when we create equal output, and I made this video about why I shouldn't get paid with LeBron James gets paid to play basketball, even though I'm equally as passionate about basketball. F my passions. It doesn't matter. LeBron James is a better basketball player. Therefore, he not only deserves to make more than me, he deserves to make more than anybody else in the NBA because he's one of the greatest. You guys see what I'm getting at? And so this idea of race neutral policies is just the way it's framed is very deceptive, because there is a time and a place where we do have to acknowledge these things and say, hey, this doesn't look very reflective of who we are as a country. Can we do anything about that? And by the way, did you guys know the biggest beneficiaries of affirmative action? The biggest beneficiaries of affirmative action, not black people. It's actually white women. Did you know that? Interesting. Because the way we would have it framed is, it's always black people taking all the good jobs. No. It's actually white women. Crazy. Now let's keep watching.
Help minorities, they're against. Republicans are for. They want to decrease military spending. Republicans are for it. Now, I'm not here to say.
So let's go back. He said school choice against for it. Now, this is a part where Democrats are goofy. Okay, this is goofy, in my opinion. School choice, I am for allowing people to have school choices. Sometimes Republicans don't want people bussed in from other schools, but I think school choice is good. But I also think the school in your proximity should have better funding, or at least equal funding, right? Schools are funded through property taxes. Not sure if you knew that. So if you're in an area where there's low home ownership, there's low, affluence, your schools are going to be, your funding of your schools is going to be reflective of that, right? And so I do think that there is a time and a place to fund local schools better, but I also think choices in going to a charter school, going here, going to a private school, going to whatever, part home, part private, I think that's good. My son goes to a co-op group and he's homeschooled, and I don't plan on putting him into public school at all. Like, this is not going to happen, right? Because I don't want him to have a worse education. And how do I know this? Because I live in a very affluent area, but this specific neighborhood has one of the worst performing elementary schools because there's lower home ownership, lower money generated from the property taxes. Our church does a lot of stuff to help with the local schools and backpack drives, all that kind of stuff. So this is a goofy one. I feel like it's an and both. It's an and both. And then he says, Democrats want to decrease military spending, Republicans want to increase. Now, by the way, if you guys ever want to think about how much this matters, just look at what the military budget is, right? And then ask yourself, well, does that need to be adjusted? Maybe, right? Maybe we should look it up. What is the annual military budget? Let's look that number up. Okay, the annual military budget is $725 billion. That's the annual budget. Okay, that is the annual budget. Now let's look up what is the annual federal budget. Okay, so 4.79 is the annual federal budget. 20% of our federal budget, 20%, it goes towards military spending. I think we should have a strong military. I think we should have strong borders. I think we should be on the cutting edge of all that stuff. I think it's important that we lead. When you have something worth protecting, you need to protect it. This is why I have firearms and guns, right? So I'm all for that. But if 20% of my household income went to guns and ammo, you guys would think I was out of my freaking mind. You guys would think I was nuts. If 20% of my monthly budget, my annual budget, went to me getting new machine guns and drones that could shoot people and all kinds, you guys would be like, Ruslan, really? Really, dog? Really? And again, I'm no military expert, but maybe 20% is a little much. And maybe the Democrats are onto something and saying, hey, maybe we should reduce a little bit. And then the whole military industrial complex and how that whole thing works together. Maybe we should adjust that a little bit. I don't know. And this is, by the way, a lot of the defunding the police versus abolishing police. Two different conversations. Abolishing police wants to get rid of police. Almost no liberal, nobody on the Democratic side believes in that, by the way. It's another one of these things they're going to try to tell you to scare you. Go look up like the left progressives, like the Young Turks. Like, go look up what those people have to say on the issue of abolishing or defunding the police. They'll tell you flat out, abolishing police is nonsense, right? Now, defunding the police is supported by some police, because with defunding the police, poor branding, by the way, horrible branding, terrible branding. Whoever thought of that name, you should get fired for just poor marketing. But what defunding the police is attempting to do is to say, hey, maybe, because there's some statistics that say upwards of 90% of police calls are towards nonviolent incidents and mental health issues. Maybe we should send out some social workers with those people. Hey, maybe we should redirect some of the funds that allows them to buy these surplus tanks and surplus military grade gear. Maybe we should restructure some of that, right? Maybe we should do that. And so as you peel away to these layers, by the way, I'm not saying either one is right or wrong. You guys got to critically think through these things. You do, not me. I know what my position are, but we all have to think through these things collectively, individually, and say, hey, what makes sense? 20% towards our military budget. Is that a lot? It feels like a lot. but I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not a military expert. I don't know everything it takes to run. I know that there's a whole military industrial complex of federally funded stuff that's very inflated and building $25 million jets, all that kind of stuff. I know there's a whole nother world out there that's just above my pay grade. But when people say, hey, maybe we should defund the military, maybe we should defund the police, it's not saying get rid of the military. It's saying, hey, maybe we should cut back a little bit. That's all I'm saying. So I say all that to say, don't let anybody pander to you. But more importantly, if you're a Trump voter, I'm not mad at you. I'm really not. I'm empathetic. I understand. I don't think all Trump voters are racist. But don't sit here and dismiss and discard your Democrat Joe Biden voting family members and think they're all evil and they're all worshiping Satan and they all want to kill babies. Don't do that. Don't do that. There's more nuance to that. And my brothers who are Democrats and are voting for Joe Biden, I'm not mad at you. I get it. I campaigned for Andrew Yang Gang, okay? And I was really disgusted by the way the DNC treated him. I get it. But do not dismiss all your Trump MAGA friends as racist, as segregationist, as whatever ism you want to add to that. Don't do that to them because broad generalizations are the epitome of ignorance. You wouldn't want everybody to lump you in as a radical leftist who wants to overthrow everything. Don't lump people on the other side because both of these parties have issues. Both of these parties have issues. And both of these parties are ultimately, you know what they're ultimately about? Attaining and maintaining their power. That's what this is ultimately all about. Attaining and maintaining their power. That's what it's about. Okay? So a lot of that, you know what that looks like? A lot of that looks like status quo. It just does, man. And that's why Donald Trump happened. That's why there was a disruptive candidate, because people got tired of status quo. They wanted an outsider. So hopefully that's helpful, man. Again, guys, I'm really trying to save you. I'm really trying to save you some friendships. I'm really trying to save you some family member blowouts. See the nuance. All right, see the nuance. It's more complicated than black and white. Hopefully this is helpful. Let me know.
Kingstream Entertainment. Ruslan.